Hey guys, welcome back to the garage. We're continuing work on my 1989 BMW 325i E30. The aim of today's video is to hopefully future-proof the body of this car by encapsulating the internal frame rails with a special type of sealing paint. Now if you remember, my car had a lot of rust issues that I have gone back and welded in new metal and hopefully fixed them for a long time to come. But to guarantee that water won't get into those frame rails and start eating away at that metal again, we've got to seal it up. Let's take a look at the special paint I have here on the bench. So it might just look like regular spray paint that I've got here, but it's actually a special formulated type paint specifically for internal frame coating. Now this stuff is made by Eastwood, and Eastwood makes pretty good stuff, so I have pretty high confidence that this will work as intended. It is something that you just apply directly over any sort of corrosion that might be there. Now, when you're dealing with frame rails, there's no way to actually get inside the frame and clean it up beforehand. So this stuff is supposed to work over any sort of corrosion that might already be there and just stop it in its tracks and prevent any sort of water that gets in there from causing further damage. Now, Eastwood does make this in two different colors. I've got a green can right here, but they also make one in black. I've got 4 cans here. I intend to use maybe 2 cans. We'll just have to see how much I use. Probably 2 cans on my E30 and then the other 2 cans on my Toyota Tacoma. Now, inside of each one of these boxes is the paint, but also you get this long straw that allows you to slip the straw into a hole in the frame, and I'm not talking a rust hole in the frame, I mean like an actual manufacturer cutout in the frame. And you slide this in to its full extent, and you spray the paint, and you pull it back. And as you pull it out, it's supposed to coat the entirety of the frame rail in a 360-degree type way. So at the end of it, it's got this little brass nozzle that is supposed to shoot it in all directions. So hopefully that works pretty well. Otherwise, this is used just like any regular type of spray paint. You shake it up for about a minute and then you're ready to apply it. There's really no preparation other than that. Now, in order to apply this paint, I will need to get the car up in the air, so let's get it jacked up. Alright, with the car up in the air, I've determined that there are 3 main areas where we should be directing this paint. Let's take a look. Alright, so the first and probably the most critical area are the rocker panels right here. And we're going to access them by removing these little plugs, they're little plastic plugs in these jack plates right here. So we need to pry these plugs out, and then we'll feed the straw, the paint can straw, through there and then pull it back. So there's one of these at both ends of the rocker panel. So we will use those as our access points to do the painting with. Let's move on to place number 2. Okay, so the second area are the front frame rails right here. So this is a unibody car, but it does have some structural frame rails, and we'll route through this hole right here for one of our access points, and we'll put the straw through and drag it back. And then these run to the front of the car, and there are more access holes down there where we will put the straw in from that end, probably make it to, I don't know, about where the control arms are, and then drag it back from that point. Again, we'll do that on both sides. Now let's move on to area number 3. All right, so the final area is the rear frame section of the car. And what I'm talking about here are these box sections with these little holes that are throughout. And if we look back here nearest the rear bumper, we can see a main hole right here where I'll send the straw through, and then we will see how far that gets us. We also want to make sure we address these lateral sections right here. So we may have to go in from this little hole right there, depending on how much clearance we have. And then there's a more forward lateral section right here, nearer to the rear subframe, that we'll want to stick the straw in and hit with the paint as well. So those are the 3 main areas that I've identified as far as the frame of this car goes. Now we may also do the doors. If we look over here, you can see there's little holes here at the bottom of the doors. These are where the drain goes. We may do that area as well. We'll just see how much paint we have left. All right, so let's get painting. All right, so I've given the paint a good shaking. The first thing we need to do is remove this red cap, because we won't be just spraying it on via this cap. We will be using this straw type attachment. So we'll just plop that back on. And then we'll take the end of this straw, and first I'm going to go towards the front of the car. We'll put it in this hole, and I can kind of feel some resistance. It's hit the end of the rocker panel there. So I'm just going to spray. Alright, so I had a little bit of overspray. I got some paint thinner here, and we'll just wipe that off. So yeah, be careful on withdrawing it. Now we'll go the other direction here. So we'll slide this in. While we're here, we might as well hit the inside of the fender. There's a hole here. Alright, so that's all the nooks and crannies of the E30's chassis now coated. As you could probably tell from that video, these cans are a bit messy to use. You can see even the cans themselves got pretty messy. However, the straws never got clogged, which was really impressive considering how quickly this stuff actually ends up drying. You do put it on pretty heavy. It comes out of the can with quite a lot of volume, so you do get a little bit of dripping, but it starts to dry and solidify very quickly. And now I can see why it doesn't really require any prep, because this stuff just slides into all the small little cracks and crevices and then just starts to solidify, and it actually thickens as it starts to solidify. And you can actually see the remnants here on the can. It dries to this sort of etched type finish. Now, to do the E30, I used both of these green cans, and I will say that was even cutting it close. If you're going to be doing an E30 and hitting all the spots that I did, all those frame rails and just cavities in the body, I even did the bottoms of the doors as well, and I probably would have been better off with 3 cans, to be honest. So just know going into this, probably get 3 cans. 2 is just cutting it right at the limit. I'd say my only difficulty using these cans were the straws themselves. They're not really stiff enough to hold a straight line when you start threading it through the hole. However, if they made them any stiffer, they might not be able to bend around the bends inside of the frame rails themselves, so I don't know that there's really any good way to rectify that. I think it's just something you gotta work around, and hopefully there's another hole you can get to it from the other side, and that way you get the whole cavity covered, because sometimes if there's only one hole, you might not be able to get it all the way pushed back in there. Some other materials I'd recommend having at your disposal if doing this frame coating is a respirator. This is a 3M one, and then also have just a pair of goggles, because when you're pulling these straws out of the cavity, you might get sprayed in the face, because this stuff, I mean, it sprays pretty heavy, and if that comes out even a little bit while you're still spraying, it will get you in the face. That happened to me once, and then I put the goggles on and I never had to worry about it again. Another thing to have on hand is a bottle of thinner. This is just some plastic model paint thinner that I had laying around, and it works pretty well. Just in case you get something on the actual paint of the body of the car, you can wipe it off quickly with that. Just have some shop rags at the ready so you can hit it with some thinner and wipe off those overspray areas. So I was able to get this all done in about an hour. Overall, I would recommend doing this. It does help future-proof the car, and these E30s need all the help they can get when it comes to rust proofing. And this stuff hopefully will buy me many years of rust-free use. They're a bit messy to use, but overall I think they're a good value because there's no other way to get inside of those unseen cavities of the body and seal them up. So good stuff, I'd say. Now, I've left the car up in the air because I'm going to let it air out, because that spray is pretty fumy. So I'm just going to let this whole thing air out, dry out, before I go out and drive it again. So that's pretty much all we're going to do for this video. Hopefully I'll be getting the new interior for this car delivered so I can get that installed, and the car will be very close to being finished at that point. But until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah.